We have lower economic status. We have very depressed communities. And when you live in a depressed community and your mother is the person who is raising you, you start to see that woman as struggle. And I think black men have started to see black women and have for a long time seen black women as struggle. Not as bad people, but as people who intrinsically have to struggle. Because, let's face it, everything is not paid for. Everything is not there. And so when you see your mother and your sister and your grandmother and your aunt struggle, that's who you associate with struggle, particularly when you watch television and you see white faces doing well and flourishing, and you see your primary caregiver is having to have 2 and 3 jobs to pay the bills. That's struggle. A lot of black men say that they have bad attitudes, but I think that if you would have to struggle, you might, if it's true that black women have bad attitudes, you might have a bad attitude too if you have to have 3 jobs to pay the bill and you have to deal with racism and you have to deal with sexism. You might have a bad attitude too. I think the second problem is that in our communities we don't have a high degree of self-love. I'd say we have a low degree of self-love. We idealize whiteness, and what we really idealize is non-blackness. And so we love straight hair, long hair, we love white type hair, if it could be called that, but straight hair certainly, because most people have straight hair, well, at least so it seems. I don't know if that's actually true. But we like straight hair, we like light eyes, we like light skin, we don't like big noses, we like all the things that are not natural to us and are natural to other people. That is rough. And so when you're raised thinking that what you look like is not sufficient, and that the people who look like you are a constant source of struggle, they have to constantly struggle, you're going to want to survive by not engaging in relationships with those people. And I don't think that everybody thinks it out, but I think that this is how it happens. You engage in relationships with people who are other than struggle, who are other than what you consider to be ugly. Now, I don't think that black women are ugly. I have beautiful black sisters. My mother is black. I don't think, and my aunt, you know what I mean? Like, I think black women are beautiful. But I think that our community says that we're not beautiful. I mean, I had a hard time being a dark-skinned boy, and it was really difficult. And we don't value that. And so this problem comes out of this value, which is whiteness, or at least which is being phenotypically white. And so the question arises, I think, well, what should black women do in situations like this? I don't know what to do. I think that our community really just needs self-love. It's hard to love somebody who doesn't love themselves. And when you have a history like ours is, whether you're an African person from the continent of Africa, or an African person from around the diaspora, it's hard to love yourself when everything says not to love yourself. And so when we see this sort of attrition of black men not wanting to date black women, and I don't think that that's a majority, by the way, I think it speaks to economic status. I think it speaks to internalized racism, and I think that that's the problem. I'd like to say to go into this question of black women have bad attitudes. I don't think that this is the case. I think that you can find loads of women who have bad attitudes, regardless of their race or ethnicity. I think you can find loads of women who have bad attitudes. So I don't think it's attitudes. I think that that's an excuse. That's definitely an excuse. But I think that you might start making excuses when you feel like the decision that you made is going to be a hard-fought decision. And I think that it's a hard-fought decision is not necessarily bad, because I think that if you can start thinking about it and you can start thinking about these things, you can come better off. And so we're at a point where we've actually got to start making decisions about these things. We've got to start thinking about these things, and we've got to start talking about these things. And we've got to start talking about the love in our communities. Black men don't date white women or marry white women exclusively because black women are bad. They oftentimes say it. They cite that as a reason, but that's not true. We date it because black men date white women because there's a high degree of suffering in our community, and that suffering is economic, and it turns into a lot of social oppressions. And those are the things that, as a community, we've got to sort of legislate on, and we've got to decide as different directions, or there's going to be no end to this sort of attrition. Now, I'm not against interracial dating or marriage or anything else like that. But what I am against is the sort of self-loathing and the backfighting that we have in our community. And these images are the images that force, I won't say force, but they easily persuade people who are trying to survive away from these things. I mean, like when you talk about evolution, you talk about isolation of gene pools and finding the right equipment to survive. And so right now, black men, many black men, not all black men, think that the right equipment is the white equipment. And that's a fact. And I don't think that that's true.